Welcome. My name is Peg Oliveira, and I am going to share with you tonight some strategies for self-care. We call this presentation Care for the Caregiver, Put Your Own Oxygen Mask On First. We have all heard that phrase many times in airplane situations where they remind us that in order to be helpful to someone else, we have to first take care of ourselves. And it makes perfect sense on the plane. And when we take that learning out into the real world, we somehow sort of abandon. And so what I'm going to suggest tonight is that we put ourselves as a priority, not because we are selfish or because we are more important, but because in order to fulfill the role that we all hold of caregiver, we need to first give that care to ourselves. And so importantly, we need to learn how to do that, because I'll bet you, like myself and many of the other caregivers I know, are really good at taking care of other people, but less so at taking those practices and bringing them home. So I'm going to offer some of those practices tonight. We're actually going to do some of those things, and hopefully you can take them with you from here. A little bit about my background. I come to this work as a developmental psychologist. I work with parents and educators on understanding the basics of how children learn and grow. But additionally, for over 2 decades, I've been a yoga teacher and a mindfulness instructor and practitioner. And so this content is really the intersect of those two worlds, taking what I know about how people and sometimes kids' brains develop and how we as humans best learn and grow. And coupling it with what we now know from the science on mindfulness and stress reduction and calming the nervous system. And so with those two pieces of information, I come to the understanding that I'm bringing you tonight about how to best care for yourselves in order to best care for others. Let's start by just making sure you have what you need for this evening's work. First, a seat. If you're in a chair, try to sit with your back all the way back supported. If you're like me on a stool or something without a back, then you want to sit upright rather than slouching down, right? 2 feet flat on something, the floor. If your feet don't reach, again, like me, I'm a little bit high up. I put my 2 feet on a bench below, stool. There may be opportunities tonight, there will be opportunities tonight that you may want to take advantage of to be in a more comfortable position than a chair. You may want to have a blanket or a yoga mat or something on the floor in order to support you at times instead of the chair. So I welcome you to grab something and use that as well. Let's begin by bringing our hands together and rub. Just let your breathing be natural. You can rub at any speed, in any direction, however you want. And then take a big breath in, big breath out, and place your hands over your eyes. And then bring your hands together again and rub. Maybe try a different direction. You can go front to back, top to bottom, in a circle. Big breath in, big breath out, and bring your hands over your ears. Hands together, rub. Big breath in, big breath out, and hands over your heart. And then just let your hands rest again on your lap, on the table, on the chair arms, whatever makes sense for you. And just notice, without needing to do anything or change anything, just notice. Notice your breathing. Notice the sensations in your hands. Notice your thoughts. And then bring your attention back to us. Excellent. So that's a nice practice to begin with, because it's simple. You don't need any tools, and you can do it with kids. Kids will jump onto that as well. There we go. Tonight's goals. I'm hoping that you will leave with the tools necessary to, one, practice some basic mindfulness and movement exercises to reduce stress and build resilience. What do I mean by that? Reduce stress. Can I take away your stress? Can I take away your problems? I wish I could. If I could, I would. I cannot. But what I can do is reduce your nervous system's reactivity to stressful events. That I can help you with. I can give you some tools that calm the nervous system, right? And through these tools, you build the capacity to bounce back from stressful events. So again, I wish I could take the stressful events away. I can't, but what I can do is build your ability to be strong in the face of them and to calm the nervous system when the nervous system sort of gets excited because of stressful events. That's what we'll do tonight. And then to help you incorporate some basic recharge practices into your daily routines, right? It's kind of like our phones or our computers, you know, after a long session like this, I often need to shut down my computer, let it cool off. Then I reboot it, bring it back again, right? The battery will be absolutely, used up by the end of this session. That kind of happens to me at the end of my day as well. I sort of have to shut down, close off, plug back in, and recharge in order to be able to come back the next day to the role of caregiver, right? It's important that we have ways in which we know how to recharge, right? It's like a glass of water. If all we do all day is give the water away, then at the end of the night, we need, first of all, we have none left for ourselves. And second, we need to refill in order to be able to do that work again the next day. And so these recharge practices are about refilling the cup, about having ways to bring your energy back so that you can continue to serve. All right, a question for you. And you're welcome to put it in the chat. You're welcome to just think about it. You're even welcome to say it out loud if you want. What are the 3 most frequent emotions you feel each day now? Just take a moment to think about that. Feel free to type it in, say it out loud, or just keep it to yourself. The 3 most frequent emotions I feel each day now. Perhaps, if you have lived through the last 2 years that the rest of us have lived through, you might feel a little something like this. Some educators were asked this exact question back in 2020, and the answers left us feeling like maybe this is kind of how teachers are feeling. The most common answer in 2020 was anxious. I feel anxious. And then fearful, worried, overwhelmed, and sad. Now here we are 2 years later, and I hope that some additional positive words have snuck in there now, that maybe you feel a bit of relief, if you occasionally can feel some joy, some calm, some gratitude. But it would not surprise me if still the top words included some of these: anxious, fearful, worried, overwhelmed, and sad. And you have very good reason to feel these things. It has been a complicated few years. The support that our community is capable of offering to caregivers is quite minimal. That includes to parents, that includes to educators, that includes to grandparents. And so it would not surprise me if some of us are feeling a little worried or overwhelmed, right? That is not necessarily a problematic thing. The complication, however, is that consistently feeling these things and having your nervous system and your body react to the world from this place can potentially create some problems, right? It's not the most healthy state to be in. And so while, again, we can't take away the situations that are causing anxiety and fear, what we can do is have some practices through which we acknowledge that we're having these feelings, but also sometimes notice that even if it's in short bursts or little moments, we might be feeling other positive things as well. And to really highlight some of those things too. And then to know what we're feeling and begin to investigate why those feelings might exist, right? And what we can do in order to address those feelings. That's where mindfulness comes in. It's a big word, it's thrown around a lot, but the definition, while it has a lot of words to it, is actually quite simple, right? It's simple to understand, hard to do. It's about paying attention on purpose, right? Actually noticing what's happening in your world in the present moment. That sounds like not such a big deal, but the reality is that our brains are created to constantly pull us into the past or push us into the future, right? Our brains are survival organs. They're trying to keep us alive. And so they're constantly thinking, well, how did it go last time? What did we learn from the last time? And can I predict what's about to happen so that I can best prepare for it? The brain is not all that good at being just here now in the present. The problem is that the here and now is the real life, right? We can't change what happened in the past, and the future is really just still kind of a make-believe version of life that your brain has made up. And so there's no real point in constantly churning about the past and the future. The only moment we really have any control over is right here, right now. And so mindfulness is about paying attention on purpose in this moment, non-judgmentally, without calling it good or bad, without saying someone's right or wrong, without saying I like it or I don't like it, just noticing what is without needing to qualify it, to the unfolding experience moment to moment. Paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally, to your experience of all of this in this moment, and then doing it all over again in the next moment, not assuming that the next moment is going to be anything like this moment, right? It's about waking up over and over again to the present moment and saying, how am I now? Where am I now? Can I be honest and open to the feelings I'm having right now, even if they're different than what I was feeling 10 minutes ago, even if they're different than what I might be feeling tomorrow? That's mindfulness. Why do we need mindfulness? Well, because our life is pretty much filled with a whole bunch of chaos and stress, particularly right now. But I say that carefully because when we asked teachers prior to 2020 how they were feeling, some positive words crept in there, but mostly still the words anxious and overwhelmed were in the top 5. So being a caregiver has always been complicated and hard, draining and overwhelming. COVID has certainly added some complications to that, right? And so we are now in a time of stress, a time when our nervous systems are constantly feeling like they're being overwhelmed, like there's a crisis, right? Just when we think we have a handle on how things are going to go, something changes and we have to start from scratch with a whole new process, right? That's chaotic, and our nervous system doesn't like chaos, it likes routine, right? So mindfulness becomes a really important tool right now to calm the nervous system so that we're not reactive, so that we're not always jumping at every crisis that happens or jumping away from it, right? But rather that we can respond to it thoughtfully. That's how mindfulness helps us in the real world. Science is confirming that this is absolutely a tool that can be used to help cope with stress and deal with emotions. While mindfulness practice has been in existence for many hundreds of years, the science on it is really quite new. But the good news is that the science is simply confirming what we knew all along, that mindfulness practices really can soothe the nervous system, calm the brain, and create a more thoughtful, responsive rather than reactive person. How does it work? Just one slide on the brain so that we really understand the mechanisms of mindfulness, right? If you think of the brain as having three floors, the red, the blue, the green, the first, the second, the third, right? Bottom, middle, and top. The back bottom red part of the brain is most interested in survival. It's your breathing, it's your heartbeat, it's things you don't think about. It's just automatic, right? Those things keep us alive without needing to really focus on them. It's also the part that that reacts when you don't have time to think, right? Like you touch a hot pan and you pull your hand away. That's the back bottom part of the brain. We need that part of the brain to keep us safe. We wouldn't want to touch a hot pan and then take a really long time to make a decision about what to do about it. That would not be very evolutionarily helpful. So we need that back part of the brain to be quick, to be reactive, to make quick decisions. It's almost not even brain. It's like nerves and muscles just doing stuff, right? The heart beating, we don't want to think about our heart. Oh, I forgot to have my heartbeat today. That would be problematic, right? So that's helpful, that's good, and it does an important job. But we'll come back to how that can potentially become problematic as well. The middle part of the brain is the emotional brain. It's also memory, right? Memories and emotions are really tied together. The hippocampus is part of the middle part of the brain, the limbic system, your reactive part of the brain to emotional states. And it's responsible, again, the whole brain is a survival organ, right? Trying to keep us alive. Part of the brain is really interested in, am I connected and am I loved, right? Am I getting the nurturing support and relationships that I need in order to survive? That's the middle part of the brain. And then there's the top front part of the brain. We call it the prefrontal cortex, right? That part of the brain is responsible for what we know of to be executive function skills. These are skills that are like problem solving and collaboration and creativity. It's the kinds of stuff that makes us different than animals, right? That really makes us human. It's also the skills that we now know predict lifelong learning and success, right? So more than content, more than the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, if we teach executive function skills and we grow them throughout our life, they are very predictive of succeeding, right? And so we know those to be important. Now, here's the thing. When you touch that hot pan, or when a squirrel jumps out in front of your car while you're driving to work, your back brain kicks in. It says, react, swerve, pull your hand away, right? And we need that. The part of the brain that works and always gets stronger, and the other parts tend to weaken. And so that's where we can kind of get into trouble, is if all day long your life is squirrels jumping out in front of your car, and I know none of us feels like that, right? But if you do, it feels like there's this constant stream of crises and troubles, right? Then your back brain is constantly reacting. It gets really bossy and strong. It's like, hey, I got this, right? So that even in a time when that's not a crisis, or squirrels are not jumping in front of your car and you could be calm, the back brain says, no, I got this. There could be a squirrel. It might be, a crisis. Let me take care of it. And it becomes very reactive, right? The front brain then doesn't get a chance to kind of grow or participate in your life. And so even when you want to be creative and thoughtful and problem solving, the front brain is kind of asleep. It's weakened, right? It literally gets smaller, it atrophies. That's where we get into trouble, is when the back brain is so constantly on alert that it assumes everything is a problem and it needs to be reacting all the time. That's the feeling that we have when we're just on the edge, right? Or that's the situation where you find a child who, someone else takes their yellow crayon and they just lose it, right? Why would losing the yellow crayon be such a big deal? Well, it wasn't really the yellow crayon. It was like all the things that happened that morning before that tipped this child off, and potentially all the things that have happened in the child's life that have left this child in a constant state of thinking, this is an emergency, I need to react, right? Another squirrel jumping out in front of my car. What mindfulness does is soothe the back brain. It sort of says, right now you're okay, you can calm down, puts the fire out in the back brain. And then it's like taking the front brain, the prefrontal cortex, to the gym and doing some executive function exercises, right? Focus, concentration, calm, resisting when you want to go, getting up and going when you want to sit, right? That's the kinds of exercises that mindfulness offers to the front brain. And so it starts to build up the muscles of the front brain so that then when we take this brain out into the real world, the back brain is a little calmer and the front brain is a little stronger. The back brain has allowed itself to sort of be soothed, right? We calm, we reduce the stress response, and then the front brain becomes stronger. We increase our ability to be resilient, right? To bounce back in the face of stress. That's the brain science behind how mindfulness works on stress reduction and growing resilience. And if anyone has thoughts or questions, just please unmute and jump right in. All right, so let's begin with this next half of our time together in actual practice, right? We're going to go through some exercises that we're going to do tonight and that you can take with you quite simply anywhere. First, let's start with asking this question. Do you have a regular self-care practice now? And if yes, what is it? And again, you can write it in the chat or you can just think about it. You can blurt it out if you want. What are we talking about here? Well, something that helps you to calm the nervous system, to put the back brain fire out and to start bringing calm back to the front brain. What could that be? Could be something like meditation or prayer. It could be walking the dog. It could be swimming. It could be jogging. It could be hiking. It could be knitting. It could be reading. And so if you have something like that now, notice, right? Note it. And then I ask this. If you wanted to start a self-care practice or expand the one you had, what barriers do you think you would encounter? What would get in the way? And it's important to acknowledge that here honestly, because if there's like a list of 40 barriers, then you're going to leave here being like, forget it. I can't do it, right? But let's be really honest with ourselves. What are the barriers? And then let's be honest, are they really stopping us? Or is there anything we could do potentially to address those barriers? So I know what my answer is to the barriers, and I've found that many other people have a similar answer. And so I do want to put on the table that quite often the main barrier is as simple as time, right? We just don't have the time, too much to do. And even some of the other barriers that we come up with sort of boil down to time, right? Well, I have 2 dogs and 3 kids. Well, that really comes down to time, right? So then I don't have time for myself. There's a saying that says you should sit in meditation for 20 minutes every day. Unless you're too busy, then you should sit for an hour, right? It's kind of a joke, like, well, if you feel like you don't have time for it, then you really need it, right? But it's kind of true. If we really feel like we don't even have 3 minutes to give ourselves to just turn off and reboot our nervous system, we probably really need like 10 minutes, right? And so the offerings I'm going to give tonight don't take 45 minutes. They can, and some of them would, or you could, but there are practices that have been shown to reboot the brain in 3 minutes. And so I want you to have those, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go for that nice long walk if you have the time and when you have the time, right? But I do want to offer you some things that if time is the crunch, there are things we can do about that. So let's start. Basic ways in which you can incorporate mindfulness practices into your life. One, we started with it today, just becoming aware of the breath. Focusing on something like the breath actually takes you away from focusing on the past or the future or your grocery list or all these things that sort of bring stress, right? And so just becoming aware of your breath is one mindfulness practice. Noticing the thoughts as they pass through your mind, just sitting for a moment, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and just noticing what thoughts pop up. What's really cool about that is it begins to highlight for me the sort of background noise of my brain all day long, right? The things I worry about, the things I think about, the things that take up space in my consciousness. And because there's only so much real estate up there, if they're taking up space, then it doesn't leave me a lot of space for other things. And so once I notice that I'm constantly thinking about, when am I going to get out to the garden to water it? I'm not leaving any space for creativity, right? Or truly engaging with my daughter when I have the time to be with her, right? And so I noticed that and I say, okay, I need to figure out a way that I know I'm going to water the garden every single morning, because otherwise it just gets in my way all day long, right? So noticing what thoughts kind of inhabit your consciousness really tell you a little bit about what's stressing you out and help you come up with some strategies for dealing with that stress. Just sitting and feeling the various physical sensations in your body, right? How often do we really notice our feet hitting the ground or our seat hitting the chair, right? It's not always positive, right? It's not always enjoyable to feel every sensation in our body, but we can start to notice like, oh yeah, I am a little tense in my upper back. I really have to stop, clenching so much. And then we consciously sort of soften and let go. Feeling the rise and fall of an emotion. The same way we can notice our breath and notice sensations and notice thoughts, we can start to notice feelings, right? Emotions without needing to react, right? We do it mindfully, non-judgmentally, simply noticing what emotion am I having in this moment? And can we notice that there are more emotions than just happy and sad, right? Or, I like and I don't like, right? That's not even an emotion, that's a judgment, right? But there are complicated emotions. When I think I'm mad, am I really mad, or am I disappointed, or anxious, or sad, right? And to really start to get into the nuances of those emotions more than just happy and sad. Okay, let's start with a practice here. We call this one easy breathing. So find your mindful seat, sitting with your back against the chair or sitting upright if you don't have a back, 2 feet flat on either the floor or something, right? And your hands can rest on your lap or on the table, palms up or down, doesn't matter. And then let your eyes rest at one spot, or you can even close them and just follow my voice. And then bring gentle attention, consistent attention to your breathing. Just first notice, I am breathing. And then pay attention to the process of breathing, the breath coming in, the breath going out. If one feels differently than the other, if one takes longer than the other. And anytime your attention wanders away from the breath, either to an itch or a grocery list in your mind, just notice that. And then without judgment, come back to the breath. And again, remember, this is just like taking the prefrontal cortex to the gym. Can I practice focus? Can I practice calm? So that my brain gets used to it. So that, like any muscle, the more I strengthen it, the more natural that action will be. It's like repeating a skill in a sport over and over again until you don't even have to think about doing it. And then together we'll take a big breath in, big breath out. Good. We're going to add on to that breathing just a little bit. This one's called 1, 2, 3 belly breathing. So you can place your hands on your belly. Really, I like it just at the bottom of my ribs where my diaphragm is, because that's where I feel the lift and lower the most, right? And then you inhale for a count of 3, filling your belly. And exhale for a count of 3, emptying. Inhale to fill. Exhale, empty. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One more inhale. One big exhale. Release your hand. And then again, just notice, right, the echo after these exercises. How do I feel? Where are my thoughts going? No judgment. Just noticing. Another simple exercise. Take your hand and make a very gentle fist. You can rest that fist on the table, on your lap, or you can hold it up, whatever feels right. And then just begin by counting 5 fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then as you close them, count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And as we open, we'll inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as we close, we exhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Try again. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Once more. Inhale. Exhale. Release your hand down. When I do this with very young children, I often just do 3 fingers, right? 1, 2, 3 will be plenty of breath, and then 3, 2, 1. And they'll, of course, have trouble with the fingers. You know, you'll see them holding the fingers open and then closing. And that's okay. They still get the practice of the breathing in and the breathing out, and the counting is nice. That's another simple exercise. You can do that one, you know, while you're waiting in the grocery store at a red light, just to recharge, right? So those are exercises that take no tools. You don't need to spend any money, and you don't have to have anything with you. But to give you an idea of how some of these tools can be beneficial, I do want to offer 2 exercises, one here and then one a little later. This is my breathing ball, and these are available right on Amazon very inexpensively, and they have big ones and they have little ones. Mine's kind of tiny, and it allows for kind of training wheels for the breathing, right? An actual visible thing to look at and feel as though it is breathing. So we say, as I open my ball, take a big breath in, and as I close it, take a big breath out. Big breath in, big breath out. Inhale. Exhale. And so I really like having sort of training wheels, the hand or the breathing ball. It's hard for me to just sit and breathe. I sort of tend to get more distracted, but when I have a toy to play with, I get a little more focused. So these are nice. They're called Hoberman Spears. And again, if you Google them, you can find them quite easily. Kids tend to dig them too. All right, so some other recharge practices: anywhere, anytime. Hang on, here we go. Without needing a whole lot of time or any big tools. One is the stop method. You stop, you take a breath, you observe your feelings, and then you proceed, right? So when you feel like you're going to be reactive, when someone says something to you and you feel judged or criticized or just angered by it, we stop, we take a breath, we observe our feelings, and then from there, from the front brain rather than the back reactive brain, we make a conscious choice about how to proceed. So that process is taking us from the back brain up to the front brain, the more logical, the more creative, the more thoughtful part of the brain, rather than the reactive part that feels like everything's on fire, right? It's just a process for making a little more space between the thing that happens and how we respond to it, so that we have a chance to have some choice, some freedom. When we just react, we're sort of at the mercy of our angry reactive back brains, right? Our back brains that are anxious and always on fire, right? And what we want to do is detach from that and have more space, more freedom to make some choices about how we respond. We can just take a moment to feel that spring is here and warmth of the sun on our face feels really good, right? So if you have no time, but at least you have the time when you're waiting in that bus line for your kid to come out, right? Just notice the warmth of the sun on your face to bring you into the present moment. That's mindfulness. Maybe you can eat something without doing anything else at the same time. How often do we do that, right? Even if it's like one M&M, right? And you just take one M&M and you eat it and you notice the flavoring and you notice it melting in your mouth. That's being present in the moment, noticing the sensations in your body. That's mindfulness. Maybe just when you're walking from your car to your house, you notice the bottom of your feet touching the earth. That's mindfulness. Just becoming aware of your experience in your body. Maybe you can sip water without doing anything else. And anytime we engage our bodies in movement, right, be it full-on exercise, dance, or just taking a walk, or getting down on the floor and doing some stretching, right? Anytime we move our body, it's an opportunity for mindfulness, become aware of how our bodies feel, the vehicles that we have to work with in this life, how are they doing? And anytime we can go outside, connect with nature, be part of the bigger picture of the world, that's mindfulness as well. So remember, it's not complicated, it's just hard to do, right? But it's actually quite simple. It's just paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally, to the unfolding of my own experience, moment to moment. That's mindfulness. And science tells us that doing these exercises takes us from the back brain to the front brain, gives the back brain a rest, brings the front brain online, like taking it to the gym, makes it stronger, so that when we leave the mindfulness practice, we have a different brain to work from, a more calm, a more conscious, a more responsive, rather than reactive brain. Another exercise I want to introduce you to that we don't have time to do tonight, but that there are many of online and easy to Google, is called a body scan. So if you Google body scan, you will come up with a number of YouTube videos, and they walk you through just noticing your toes, noticing your knees, noticing your belly, noticing your chest, and you just breathe into those body parts. And as you notice them, you bring calm to them, right? It takes, a good 15 minutes. So it's a little bit of a longer practice, but it is a practice that is very simple, that you can find online, and that really does bring ease and calm to the body. But the last practice that I want us to do tonight is a listening meditation. It does not take very long, and it can be really powerful, but it does take one tool, and that is some sort of chime, right? I get mine at on Target online for $7. You might have a triangle that you can use already in your kids' playroom or in your music class or something like that. There are fancy ones as well. I gave you the picture of one that like what I have, but these do the job very well. So what we do is we play the chime. It sounds like this. And we follow the sound of the chime with our ears for as long as we can. And then we just pause, being present with the chime, being present in the moment with the sound, and letting our breathing be natural. So let's try it together. Take a big breath in, big breath out. Big breath in, big breath out. Just notice if during the sounds of the chime you were more or less inclined to have your brain wander away, or if having the sound of the bell sort of centered you. There's no right answer. Some of us will respond better to things with our body. Some of us will respond to listening. Some of us will respond to looking at something, seeing meditation, watching meditation. The goal is to try different things, right? And not judge yourself on the things that don't work, but rather find something that does, right? And then work with that. So with that, this is my email right here, and I welcome you to reach out to me with any thoughts or questions afterwards. And so from here, I am going to stop sharing and have left about 10 minutes in case folks have comments, questions, or any other contributions, just to make sure that there's time for that. So I'll stop my share. And there we go. And welcome you to unmute yourself if you have any questions you want to ask. Or thoughts or exercises of your own that you want to share. If not, then I'm going to stop recording. And thank you very much for joining.